Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's daily brief. We are back in the saddle. It is a funny kind of day today. It is technically the Friday of the U.S. So here, why don't we put it over here? The Friday of the U.S. sort of Thanksgiving holiday. So it's kind of a weird day today. Big sort of shopping event day in the U.S. I'm not quite sure whether the Europeans or the Asians follow this as closely. But definitely in the stock markets, we had the North American markets closed yesterday. Well, the American markets closed yesterday. Canada was open, but really a muted market. And there's a whole bunch of early closings on the U.S. markets today. And from what I hear, the trading desks, it's like you can hear crickets. There's just like skeleton crews working today. Did get a couple econs coming out, basically reaffirming what we're seeing in the market, and probably reaffirming the fact that the Fed's got to continue on this interest rate raise normalization, quote unquote, talk that we've been having recently out of them. So I didn't see anything earth-shattering there, but we've been talking recently, and we spent a lot of time talking crypto yesterday, so maybe we'll talk a little stock market today here. But we've been talking a lot recently about how I think the broader indexes are coming into support levels. I don't know about the major indexes, things like the S&P and the Dow. Technically we are coming into buying zones. And actually, it's funny. I put out a tweet yesterday, and I swear, I don't quite understand Twitter half the time. I put out a tweet as sort of like a public service. I like to try and educate people on trading strategies and tools and stuff. And I put out this tweet about gaps getting filled on Bitcoin, and you get some of the weirdest responses. But I saw it happen in the crude oil market here this morning. Really, really good example of gaps needing to be filled. And when the market really gets going on the downside, where can you start thinking about support coming into the market? And we just had this big gap filled on crude this morning. And it's interesting because you just don't often see this every day. Very rarely do I ever pull up a news article or something and read and see commodity market down 7% on the day. I mean, that's pretty abnormal. That's not normal. And if anything, before we started broadcasting today, I was sort of half joking with Alex. I sure hope you guys, and he was like, yeah, Brian, and makes sense to me. I sure hope you guys appreciate how significant these long-term pivots in the market are. How do you otherwise explain, where the hell's the damn chart I'm looking for? Here we are. How do you otherwise explain how a commodity that's supposed to base, fundamentals and supply and demand, how can you explain a commodity literally losing almost half of its value in the period of about a month? There's really no other way to explain this other than there must have been some sort of end to some sort of long-term cycle that just basically just took the wind right out of the market's sails. So, this is pretty dramatic, no doubt about it. This is going to have far-reaching implications in our society. And ironically enough, we were kind of talking about bonds yesterday, and we did the whole bond analysis and how we saw, where the heck did I put those charts? Oh, geez, half the time here, it's just a question of me trying to figure out where my head is. We talked a little bit about how the double bottom has come in on the daily charts and spat up like a Leanne James setup here off of the dailies. And also, too, we were musing at the end of yesterday's video about a potential top coming in here on the swing traders. But I got to tell you, and if anything, this should be a really, really good lesson for everybody. The effects of a precipitous collapse in energy prices and what the sort of inflationary, deflationary effects of this kind of event are on an economy. And I hope everybody can appreciate this is extremely deflationary. And if anything, we should probably expect a counter trend rally in bonds just in the face of this mess. Now, this is a classic front part of the cycle conversation. They always say that it goes cost push, demand pull. Cost push, the cost of doing business, the cost of to the economy. Energy is a great sort of cost. You know, there's also food costs, right? So the grain markets and the meat markets, softs markets. This is sort of that conversation. I think, you know, like people are asking, and I often say that crude oil and gold are at the other ends of the cycles. And something like gold is that demand pull, and it's all about, you know, wage inflation and the purchasing power of money and stuff like that. And, you know, I hate to say it, but when I look at these charts and I see this kind of action in the crude, somebody was asking in the lounge this morning, you know, why isn't gold either moving up or dumping? I kind of think when I look at the market, it's almost like gold is kind of like, okay, if we just stay really quiet and we don't say anything, maybe they'll just ignore us, right? And that we'll just quietly sneak out into the weekend. And I think that, you know, this is the tail end of the inflation story. Ironically enough, you know, because wages, you hear lots of talk about the Fed and stuff, concerned about wage growth and, you know, full employment and all that kind of stuff. This is the back end of that inflation story. So as a result, he's hanging in there, but I think it's only a question of time before these back end inflation proxies have to start coming off as well. And we should probably keep an eye on the simple fact that usually what ends up happening, if you just do a simple Google search, gold seasonality, usually there's a dump about the end of November, beginning of, actually that's not bad there. Looks like they're marking their low there, October. But, you know, I guess you can see here, end of November, beginning of December, there's usually a little bit of a pullback here. And I'm wondering whether they're just waiting for that event to do a little mini dump here in gold. I don't know. That's a tough one. You know, it looks to me clearly like they've got the crude and the oil energy, beg your pardon, in the spotlight right now, and it's that leading component of the inflationary conversation. And, you know, we have to take away from the fact that commodity prices in general are going to be coming down here. And, you know, sadly, the trend now for commodity prices over the next 15, 20 years is down, not up. You could argue now that, in essence, with this crude oil market, they've basically built in, and this is sort of where I wanted the conversation to go. They built in a lot of wiggle room now for this market, right? This market can now easily, you know, there's 38.2 at $60. You can see the top of value. And this is such a great commentary on those gaps being filled, that tweet that I just put out. Look how it just comes right in against the reload zone. You can see long-term trend line support's going to be in this area. And boom, right up against the POC, right? In essence, this is where most of the people on the street are long crude. And so all they've done is they've just brought the market right back down into basically market structure support here. I was very interested in this divergence and Willie Stupid, but and when we talk about trade setups, is there something we're missing here? We've got location. We've got divergence with Willie Stupid. What are we missing? Structure. Thank you, Christian. So it's fascinating to watch how literally no W's want to come in here. And we just, as traders, if we really are interested in alongside of crude for a trade, because I think there's going to be some money, you can see that's $10 right there. I mean, gee whiz. There was this funny little inside bar that came in here, but, if anything, this is an excellent testament that, inside bars are okay. It would have had you buying above the reload zone. Probably not the best location, eh? And interestingly, on this inside bar reversal, we hadn't had this divergence actually confirm yet. The divergence actually confirmed on this candle here. So it's like at this point, okay, now you can start hunting structure. You can see how they potentially put in an inside bar there, but no, lost it, went to new lows. I guess just a simple message I wanted to convey to the community is, we have to expect weaker commodity prices. There may be nice dead cat bounces that you can play for bull rallies. And of course, if this thing, starts structuring out, we may rally back up and test these highs in earnest. But given the cycle, given where we are long term, I think seeing this actually makes sense considering our cycle thesis. Other than the cycle thesis, this doesn't make any sense. You can't fundamentally make the argument that crude oil is worth $75 and then in less than a month make the argument crude oil is worth $50. So fundamentals are definitely not at play here. This is purely the end of a long momentum push. And of course, I made the argument that a lot of this was purely political, trying to buy votes in North Dakota, which is a major oil producer now. Go figure. All right, so a little bit of an, like the irony of all of this is that I actually think that they would be doing the same thing in the gold market. But the irony of it all, and I've sort of talked to you guys about this before, what does it actually take for a crash to happen in a market? Well, it actually takes them bidding prices up. And if we go back years ago, right, the way that this thing sort of quote unquote crashed, and in this case, it was actually a pretty orderly correction, was that they had to have this big rally ahead to get all the public long. Now, is there any asset in our society that maybe might be replacing gold? Right? And I find this fascinating because, all the gold bugs, of course, rah, rah, bull, rah, rah, bear, whatever, and they're all pissed off. I might actually make the argument that gold is basically the 20th century store of value proxy. Is there any other market that might have been ridiculously bid up into that cycle peak, and then is getting whacked here? And of course, the answer, of course, is good old Bitcoin. So, ironically enough, if and actually maybe I'll do that over the next couple of days, is do our historical summary. Ironically enough, if we actually go back and look at the gold charts and the silver charts from like 1980, they looked exactly like this, almost identical. So I find that fascinating. In essence, we are transitioning into a digital world where now digital assets are being those stores of value. As you guys are living, breathing testament to this. Something I wanted to mention just before we get going in earnest, and I apologize, I've been blabbing here for about 10 minutes. I did just put this out, and I think it's important because I don't really... I'm not really that good of a shiller. I'm not really that good of a marketer. I don't even really like this side of the business. I always hated the sales side of the brokerage industry. I'm not good at it. Ironically enough, if I go to a sales conference or something like that, I used to actually talk people out of buying stuff because, I just thought it was too risky. And man, I sure got into a lot of trouble with my sales managers. So we actually brought somebody on, and when we were in Vienna, I had the privilege of meeting Albert, who's a stand-up guy. There's his screenshot, a handsome guy. He does have a very good sort of marketing background. And he's trying to sort of bring TRI into this sort of business sort of model. And good business model should have a marketing arm and a marketing strategy and all that. So to that end, I've never been in the past a big sort of Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Me personally, I don't like that stuff. But at the same time, too, any sort of successful business, especially on the internet and digital and all that kind of stuff, should address this and should have a campaign towards this. So we actually brought Albert on specifically to address this. And one of the things that he asked us to do today, which just makes common sense, is let's talk a little bit about Black Friday. And I suppose we should do like Cyber Monday and all that kind of crazy stuff too, Albert? But he asked me to start putting like the little tweets to remind people. So anybody who's watching this daily brief today, Albert and the marketing arm, Sjord, doing all the coding, has put together these pages to try and offer some discounts to you guys. So, and from what I understand, there's lots of interest on the site for this stuff. So obviously Albert's doing something right, because there's a lot of people that are like, hey, Black Friday, I want, where's my deal? Where's my deal? So, hats off to Albert. He's got TRI going. He asked me to, number one, just touch base with the Twitter community. And I know there's like the replies here. I know I'm going to have guys going, you fucking shill, right? You're just a scammer. All that. I mean, I hope everybody knows at TRI how sort of, I don't want you guys to feel like I'm shilling a product here. I really want you to feel as though you're getting really good value. I ask you guys every single day. So I don't think anybody in our community feels as though I'm shilling. But at the same time, it is the big cyber event day. So the people have gone, I need help with this kind of stuff, right? Because, like if it was up to Brian, I'd just give all this shit away for free. But I've got Sjord and I've got Julian, and now we've got, Alex, my co-host here, Thomas the Bear, Albert, and now, of course, Maud. And if anybody doesn't know who Maud is, ask Sjord about Maud. She's driving the whole bus. So, I mean, it's not like I can just give this stuff away for free. We actually have people's actual lives are dependent on this and their livelihoods. So I do like the idea of us giving you extra deals. And if this incentivizes you to continue on your education and you feel like you're getting great value from TRI, please, I highly encourage everybody to take advantage of this. I'll be sort of talking about this over the weekend. And then, of course, Cyber Monday is the big Monday day. So don't be shocked if you hear Brian talking about this a bit. And, of course, there's some pretty good prices, right? I mean, that's a pretty good deal. If you are interested, please take advantage of it and do your cyber weekend thing. I don't know, Albert, again, I'm not the best sales pitchy kind of guy. I hope that's what you wanted me to convey to the community. And I'll polish this up over the next few days. But the long and short of it here is, you can grab this from the Twitter feed. Tell a friend if you feel as though this is a pretty good deal. We totally appreciate that. And if I've missed anything that I should be talking about here, Albert, afterward, can you just send me the notes on your page? Brian, you forgot to mention this. Brian, we really need to promote that, those kind of things. Okay, Albert? Is that cool? Are you there? Did I do a half decent job? Did I mention what I was supposed to mention? All right, good. Awesome. All right. So moving forward, well, hopefully, take advantage of this. These discounts are really, really good. So, okay. Stock market, as we sort of said, I think that we're actually in sort of the bottoming process. They're going to try and get as many retail public to panic dump. And, I sort of see the malaise. I think we had sort of told you the other day we had a big volatility spike in option premiums on the NASDAQ when it dumped into my AB equals CD target levels. And so I liquidated that final short position that I had on the NASDAQ. So I'm just sort of sitting in cash, just twiddling my thumbs. But this to me feels very, very suspicious. I suppose your timing signals, if the market can break this red line, then, and you'll see how there's a nice little M right there, that right off of that red trend line. Then I think probably we're ready to go for a nice little counter trend rally up top. It's not here now, but my hunch is over the next week or two, especially coming back after the Thanksgiving holiday, we'll start talking about things like, okay, what do Christmas sales look like and all that kind of stuff. And there are lots of gaps up top here, so I'm very leery about putting on new short positions here. And if anything, I would also argue too that you could argue that this shortened holiday session, we talked about divergence, location, Willie Stupid. They've now cleaned this market up. So if they actually wanted to start basing and building a base into next year's marketing campaign, especially seasonality, all that kind of stuff, they've got the green light, right? Basically, they've taken the fluff out of this market. Little ones, not really much to get too excited about here. Keep in mind that this is tax loss selling season. So in crypto, we're seeing a lot of downside pressure. Not a big surprise. Tax driven events, transactions. And we often say, too, that if somebody makes a decision based on tax implications and not on actually, is it a good idea to buy or is it a good idea to sell, either fundamentally or technically, they're usually making the wrong decision. And the market, of course, eats that kind of stuff up. If you ever make a decision in the marketplace based on tax implications, it's usually the exact opposite trade you should be doing. So, the irony of it all is that, tax season, there's a big incentive to go and, do retirement savings plan contributions and stuff into like sort of February, March, April. And then there's usually a big tax refund where people feel pretty rich, April, May. And, the market's all popping and the brokerage industry is shilling like crazy. And ironically enough, that's usually the top of the market. And then, into this time of year, this is when they're just throwing everything out because it's tax-driven events, tax loss selling into the end of the year. And you can sometimes get some really, really good bargains. Kind of like that cyber sort of conversation stuff. So, I am slowly in here nibbling some of our VCIM names. Keep a close eye on them. Looks like our shipping stock is coming down into a buying window. I'll be interested to see if I can get a fill on that over the next few days. My beer stock, they have no interest in selling this thing, but I'll see if I can be a buyer against these lows. A couple of the VCIM metals names. This Orestone, very strong. So again, they're not really that interested in selling, but you can see where I want to be a buyer. I did get filled on some Timberline, and if you are interested in this story, not bad, 40 million out. It's okay. Directors are long down here. Did a little nibbling here. Haven't actually pulled the trigger on Warrior or this new Carlin yet. I know Stanimal, he's very interested in these two. Again, they're both sort of Canadian mining stocks, and us in Canadian mining land. Obviously, we have a lot of interest in the mining industry here in Canada. I have not bought back into the deep PW yet. I did get filled on my iMining, where Mr. Edie is long, so he and I are sitting long at exactly the same level. And I did get filled on my blockchain chain K2, can never read that correctly. Again, and I love this. I love this. This is, yeah. I got out of DPW back here. Eh, you see where I was stopped out? Remember I reported that, Jonas? So I'm still not ready to do anything here. I do have this little pot stock slash blockchain stock on the books, Calix. It's underwater. It's not happy whatsoever. I do see that pot stocks themselves are looking a little bit firmer in here. So if we get any kind of counter trend rally back into this range, I'm probably just going to walk away from that story. Don't be surprised if I just subtly hop out of there. So I am watching DPW, but the problem I had with DPW is it had too many shares out, right? It's got like 90 million shares. I didn't have the bid working. I said I was going to watch price action as it came down into this gap, and I just didn't see anything that got me excited on the bull side. And as you can see, there's just nothing to get excited yet. And we've gone now to a new low. If you did buy that gap and you were trading this, then I think you got to take the punch in the nose. But I didn't. Uranium, with energy looking a little heavy up top here, I would imagine the uranium names are just going to cool their jets. VCIM name on U308. We can get in at 2 bits. I'm happy to sit there. But because of tax loss selling season, and this is a VCIM, don't be shocked if this thing's trading down below 2 bits. But basically, that's where the directors are long. I'm more than happy to say. I love it when the VCIM names line up like this one only has 15 million shares out. I don't mind being long down at the bottom, and I'll just sit tight. But if they have a lot of stock out, like the DPW, I am very leery, and also the Calix too, to a certain degree. A little too much stock. Juniors, I'm not looking for any runaway bull market. And if anything, ironically enough, the junior stock market to me actually looks very similar to the junior sort of altcoin market, which we can talk about shortly here. All right. Anything else I wanted to mention over here before we head off? We had talked about this the other day. Remember, we had said that out of that political event, the right-wing people who were driving the bus in the U.S. government, who were more pro-coal industry, they didn't do very well out of that election, and there's that reaction out of the coal stocks. So I think we'd done the community a favor, sort of pointing this out. And really, I don't think anybody at TRI has any business investing in coal. Coal, if anything, it's not even a 20th century story. I might argue coal is a 19th century story. Yes, a huge part of our electricity that we generate is still generated by the burning of coal. But, global, now they don't call it global warming. I heard yesterday, and I don't know whether we have anybody from back east here, but I heard yesterday they reported the coldest Toronto in history for November 22nd. I think it's 22nd or 23rd or whatever. The weather, and actually I'd just be curious, and this is half the reason why I live in Vancouver. Let's see what the weather is in Toronto today. Temperature in Toronto. Oh, hey, at the balmy 1 degrees Celsius. Well, that's not so bad. What did I hear? Somebody said yesterday it was like minus like 20 degrees or something there. That doesn't look that bad. Okay. Well, scratch that idea. I don't know who was. Do we have yeah, well now they call it climate change, right? So anyway. But I don't know that we have anybody well, these temperatures don't look so bad. I wonder why I heard somebody say yesterday the temperature was just like insanely cold. Oh well. I am totally off topic. Sorry, guys. Let's get back on topic here. But the bottom line here is I think that the political powers in the U.S. government are going to be very anti-coal going forward. The Democrats are more sort of, we believe global warming kind of stuff. We have to do something. And coal is a major, contributor to those CO2, greenhouse, all that kind of stuff. Ironically enough, though, we could actually make the argument that, gee whiz, they just took the market right back into a shorting location and then put in a top. Okay, a little bit off topic there. Sorry, guys. We spent a lot of time talking about the bond market yesterday, so I don't think we need to review that. Screener ideas, and actually, oh yeah, something I wanted to mention to you guys. This is really interesting. You guys, Tilray is not a bad example to be following this. Remember I said just a moment ago that Calixit probably is going to catch a little bit of a bid here, and I'll just hop out on that. On any kind of rally back up top. But do you remember in yesterday's daily brief, I had mentioned that the pod stocks were putting in this channel here. So anybody who's a pod stock enthusiast, I don't know whether you want to buy Tilray or not. That's entirely, I suppose, up to you. But interesting price action here on Tilray. So we've broken this initial downtrend line that was actually confirmed here. So that's over. And then we've come up and we've created another one here. I think you could make the argument, nice little narrow sideways channel. If you wanted to buy on a break above, what's this high here? 113.85 and just simply risk to a break of 102. You're going to risk $10 on the trade. Not bad. I mean, traders got to trade. I'm not really getting anything internally here that's too exciting, momentum or volume wise. So it's not really like, oh my God, you totally have to load up. But, if you were looking for a trade in the pot coin or the pot stock space, interesting action there. And I saw this on a number of these pot coins. You can see that this little Kronos is trying to put in a bottom. So keep your eyes peeled. I don't know when the next sort of political event is in this space. Yeah, it looks like this guy still has got a bit of work to get through that trend line there. I'm not, really that interested right now in these names, but I did have a full screen of these, and just one by one, I've actually put other stuff on the screen. This is interesting. Remember, our screener yesterday gave us Moody's, beautiful little double bottom. Interesting, the way the U.S. stock market's just sort of floundering here today. I think there's the New York market actually closes. And if I'm not mistaken, I think in about a half an hour. I think it's 1 o'clock Eastern time that the U.S. stock market's closing. So if anything, what do you think? Does it make sense, guys? Can you see how they're sort of setting this thing up? If this thing really wants to rock and roll come Monday morning, they'll tick it up right through the top, and away we go. And, you might argue, too, you've heard Brian talk about bull-bear battle lines. I mean, I don't think I would be interested in trading this short. But if we finish sort of right here today and then we lost this, do you see how this is an inside bar? And that's going to basically suggest we have to go back down. If we tick up through the top here, that's going to be a nice little short-term bullish flagpole. There's our Joby gap. And, of course, you got this bigger double bottom. You got this little double bottom right in here. So really cool. I mean, I didn't see any updates to the screeners today, but I am just sort of keeping an eye on this thing. I really would like to see how this develops. And in essence, this is the kind of stuff that we want to bring to you guys as sort of a value-added feature of the site is the screener. And I was really impressed. I think Stuart told me 2 different people said that if we can get this kind of shit firing on a regular basis, this is going to take TRI to the next level, right? This is where, people need this stuff on a daily basis. So way to go, Stuart. As I've said repeatedly, we're so close. We're just within a baby's breath of producing this. We've come so close in years gone by. So Stuart, just keep on keeping on, keep it rocking. Albert, of course, is got the marketing worm rocketing. So, at least we'll be able to keep the lights on and keep everybody keeping it going. Let's just stay focused and let's bring this thing home. So anyway, I just wanted to mention something about that. Okay, I think that's about all I wanted to talk about on the broader stock market. We probably should head over and talk a little crypto now, and then send you good people on your way. Where do we begin? Weekly, I've been watching this GDAX chart for quite a while. Very interesting battle at this trend line here. Obviously, with crypto trading 24/7, this weekly candle won't finish until Sunday. We're also coming up to 78.6. So this is a really, really big level for Bitcoin. But the irony of it, guys, and I've said this repeatedly, the interesting thing, of course, is you can see wicks and tails like to be eaten. There's that big tail there. Brian loves to talk about candle body lows as trade location. Here is that original Goldman Sachs bottom that was put in I guess, God, I can't believe we actually have to say 2 summers ago. Feels like it was literally just yesterday with that. We don't even see half of those people on the site anymore. They used to come on. We used to have a guy on the site who is actually a relative of the Goldman Sachs lady who actually came out with the big buy recommendation right here. But I don't see him on the site anymore at all. So interesting. We're finally coming into some important historical levels on Bitcoin. And then, of course, Brian's good old line in the sand. I've said repeatedly that I fully expect that the market will probably at some point recapture that 78.6. And we'll look back. Yeah, Rohan was his name. Yeah. No, was it Rohan? I think it was. Maybe one of those guys. Anyway. And we'll look back over time and we'll go, oh, gee whiz, son of a bitch. They put that goddamn bottom in off 78.6. And in essence, I think we weren't looking at it specifically, but you could make the argument that back in 2014 and 2015, that's exactly what they did. So if we go zoobity-zoo, I don't know where you want to go. We can go off of there, I suppose. You can see, like, this is what I think we're doing right now. And it's a pain in the butt, guys. I totally know. So, here is the reload zone. And I've said repeatedly that I have no problem if dollar cost averagers just put themselves on a dollar cost averaging regime. But and you're just slowly adding to your bag over time. I think that's a great strategy, and it gets rid of a lot of the nonsense that you see in the social about Bitcoin. Is it going to the moon? Is it going to zero? Blah 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 blah. Just tune those idiots out. I definitely think that Bitcoin is here to stay, and of course, unfortunately, what's really going on here is what is the actual cost to keep this network going. Mr. Penis Eater, he told us last year that his cost was $1,000. Let's assume that he was bullshitting by 50%. Let's even maybe he was bullshitting by 75%. Maybe rising costs around locally here. Maybe his cost is $2,000. Maybe it's $3,000. I don't know. But the point of the matter here is that's what the process that we're going through is. We're trying to figure out where they, all of the marginal players, they all get flushed out of this business. And, I might argue that the day that we start hearing about 51% attacks on Bitcoin itself is probably we're within shooting distance of some sort of bottom, quote unquote. 2014's hangover was, pretty nasty. And this is what I was really worried about. You guys notice that, the market was relatively happy. Then look at the week here, November 12th, right? Like literally following that event, there was a dump, then a consolidation, and then it just turned into a cascade. And I'm fearful that this is exactly where we are in this. And, for those people that are looking to get rich sort of into, Christmas this year, this is going to be a really, really painful event here. This is the end of the bear. And we always say that Bitcoin It can't end either up moves or down moves without some sort of horrendous blow off top or fuck you bottom. I mean, I've been in this space now 4 or 5 years. Every single major pivot is some sort of horrendous, and the worst part about this for all of you guys is this was really unfair what they did to the market last year. I mean, just blatantly unfair. And I was even commenting with people on, like, do gaps get filled? And, idiots are going, well, it's too small of a gap for you to actually pay attention and call that a gap. And it's just like, what? Shut up. But the point here, what I find really interesting about price action, this is looking at Stamp, is can you see that on balance, we're really not a hell of a lot of difference year over year. I mean, maybe you go like October through November, right? October through November. What I found really amusing about this is that, that whole sort of Thanksgiving family dinner table conversation. It's interesting how we don't have very many Americans here can hang out today. But I can imagine all the crypto enthusiasts, man, they took it on the frickin' chin yesterday. And yet the irony of it all is that price really, it's not really changed. In fact, I would argue it's basically unchanged year over year. And all of the people that were rah Bitcoin last year at exactly the same dinner table, man, they took a world of shit. And yet the irony of it all is that there really isn't a heck of a lot of difference. What really sucks, and it pisses me off. What do you think, guys? Is there maybe just the slightest possibility that this kind of move was all manipulated? It was slightly finessed. What do you think? Is there anybody who's in charge of the United States of America's political structure that might have encouraged this kind of behavior? I don't mean to be rude, but the long and short of it is the current leadership in the United States, well, some people believe that they're actually friendly and they're on your side. I don't think so. I think if they can make a buck, they will. Anybody who runs for-profit universities, you have to understand their motivations. Even if you said, okay, well, you know what, Bitcoin's on a very strong bull run. Let's just play connect the dots. Okay, well, so that's a pretty natural trend line. And then we often say that, we can draw trend channels and give you sort of price action channels. Ironically enough, I think this was actually sort of the natural course that the market wants to follow. And, I almost find it, unfortunately, Bitcoin is unregulated. This really wasn't fair what they did to the crypto community last year. This, in essence, is the same thing as them running gold up to $850. I mean, look at the similarities. I need for all of you guys to see this because it's quite shocking. They did exactly the same thing in the gold market in 1980. Right? Exactly the same thing. And the worst part about it, do you see the similarities? Do you think this is a natural move in gold prices? And the silver market was even worse, right? The silver market, they actually had there were two twins. They called them the Hunt brothers, and the Hunt brothers tried to corner the silver market. And we don't hear talk about that kind of stuff anymore. I'm surprised there isn't anybody who talks about somebody trying to corner the Bitcoin market. But anyway, that's what they did in the silver market into 1980. And hopefully you guys can see the similarities. And this is why I make the argument that if there was no Bitcoin, I think gold would have done something like this through this cycle peak. But good old Bitcoin was the market du jour. What the hell's that damn peak? All right. I think Bitcoin would have done something like this. Excuse me. I think gold would have done something like this, as the classic sort of anti fiat system, anti government, anti no confidence in the market, blah 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 blah. But the asset du jour that did do this was good old Bitcoin. Um, so the irony. I mean, do you see the similarities? They should be glaringly obvious. So, I mean, this is the tragedy of capitalism. It's actually reasons like this why, like, the socialists and the communists and the central planning people actually, get an ear. There's going to be a lot of people now that are going to look at Bitcoin as a scam. But the irony of it all is nothing really fundamentally has changed in Bitcoin over the past year. It's still basically doing exactly the same job that it was doing over here. The only difference is that the price of the unit, of course, is, all over the place. And if anything, guys, here is just another perfect testament to this whole idea, rational analysis. We want to try and figure out some sort of fundamental value for these assets. And that should be sort of your basis for investing going forward. So, what do you think, guys? If anybody told you that they invested in Bitcoin up here, do you now see, like someone like Axel, do you see how idiotic the concept of investing in an asset right there is? Does it just make sense? You changed my mind. Okay. Was that, were you bullish or were you bearish? And at the very least, right? I hope a lot of you how do we say this? Use the time, especially, oh boy, ouch, oh boy. Especially, consider, regardless of what you did in the market, buying and selling assets, right? But, the time that you spend watching these daily briefs, the time that you spent, in the school program, like, this is the big message. And I need for you to take this away for the rest of your life, because all markets do this. All markets do this. This isn't out of the ordinary. Like, we're jazzed about natural gas right now, and sort of the anti-coal proxy. The irony of it all is that not too long ago, natural gas went through exactly the same cycle. Here's this was the big cycle into 2000. I mean, same thing. Can you see how this is basically same poop, just different pile? Right? So this is the kind of stuff that I need for you guys to learn and take this going forward for the rest of your life. You might trade this up in here, firm stops, don't risk more than, and really 5% is probably too much, or maybe a few percent of your stake that you're working with. But you just can't invest in assets that look like this. You just can't. You're not allowed to. And ironically enough, and this is the kick in the pants, this is what really bugs me, is that you could really make the argument that nothing's really changed in Bitcoin. I would argue that it's basically exactly the same asset it was a year ago. The only difference is somebody's fucking around with the price horrendously. And ironically now, the sentiment within this space, we're into areas where they've taken the fluff out of the market. It's gone now. Actually, you know what? We have to get to the point where you can't give one of these Bitcoins away. If we get to the point where you can't give the Bitcoin away, then for certain it's actually a half decent investment. The problem here, though, so the fact that you still say I'll take it, Jonas, means that we're probably not at the bottom yet. I even put out a chart the other day where I had, let's see, it was a really cool chart I did. Unfortunately, I can never find these damn things. Not there, not there, not there. I might have lost it. Doji, 55 ticks. Go, baby, go. I love this little Doge. It's great, great little coin. Total buck in the overall trend, eh? Doge says, fuck you. And I actually saw I saw Charlie Lee earlier today say that he's expecting Litecoin to overtake Bitcoin, which I thought was hilarious. Where the hell's that damn chart? Darn. Hate when I can't find these charts. Now I've lost my train of thought. Darn. All right, well, thought we'll have to wait for another day. Yeah, what did I do with it? It might have been. No, it's not that one. Anyway, I did up a longer term chart. Actually, I think it's this one. Yeah. The level twoers, they just did volume profile. And so in a weird sort of way, remember we talked about end of November, right? Nasty dump, and then into the end of the year, 2014. And, if we do our reload zones, just off of these lows, I think this is like I think there was the Bitcoin ETF low there. Gaps need to be filled. You can see the POC. If we do up a reload zone in here, I've said repeatedly, I have no problem whatsoever. Somebody just dollar cost averaging. We're now at 78.6. There was some cheeky little gaps here, and probably on stamp too. You can see Send script has got some dots here. So there probably are some gaps that were filled in here. But these actually, and it's kind of interesting how I freehanded this, but do you see this is pretty much what I'm expecting our sort of future to look like? Is I fully expect that down the road, if we just sort of, 6-8 months from now, typical bear market, 18 months in duration, we're going to go through some shit into the end of the year. We need to hear some people just absolutely freaking out, panic dumping. I hate Bitcoin, blood in the streets. Thank you, Axel, from your Fight Club days. Oh, sorry. Number one rule about Fight Club: not allowed to talk about Fight Club. Brian's just being silly. But I fully expect that this line in the sand will probably be the pivot that actually marks the next bull. And, historical reference, that's exactly what 2014 looked like. Where's that? Right. If we go back. Right. Do you see that similarity? I totally free-handed this. Totally free. Oh, damn it. Hey. All right, I totally free-handed this. I just sort of said, okay, well, maybe a bit of consolidation, dump into the end of the year, mark the ultimate panic low, right? I'm actually looking for that panic dump low into sort of like the first week of January, all right? Then a reaction, lots of I hate you, Bitcoin, it's all a scam, blah, 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 blah. Profile fills in. And then, it's interesting. We even had one of our longtime alumni, Jonathan, he put out a tweet recently, and I got to say, man, it was spot on. He just goes, well, I'll see you in May, right? Typical 18-month duration bear. So, I like the idea of the market ultimately bottoming in May. Let's see. I don't know where Jonathan's tweet is, but around here somewhere. Oh well, can't find it. Anyway, here it is. JB, this is a guy who took our course back 2014, and not a bad looking study. I think there's a lot of validity to this. And his simple argument thesis is wake me up in May. Alex, what did you tweet here? I'm almost afraid to open this up. Let's see what it says. Survey says capitulation. Oh boy. Yeah. Yeah, so the interesting thing, and like guys like Axel, I really worry about guys like Axel because I really don't want you to lose faith in this Bitcoin story, but the market is trying to get you guys to lose faith. The irony of it all is that this is all bullshit. This was fluff. This was nonsense. This is actually a normal, healthy Bitcoin. And so, all they're doing is they're just cleaning out the fluff, the nonsense, the bullshit. And they're, like I said, year over year, the irony of it all is that really not a heck of a lot has actually changed here. Excellent. Good to hear, Christian. Good. Alex just joined the call here. I think he's a really good one that sort of keep everybody stable and on an even keel. I worry about guys like Albert, right? Coming from sort of the poker community. He has to learn, the very hard way of what these bull bear cycles are like. And this is on the heels of this massive 17.5-year cycle pivot. Which, I worry about you guys. Like a guy like me, I'm not going anywhere. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've seen this happen countless times. I don't have to worry about a guy like myself. I know I'm going to stick around. I have to, my worry. And, my message to this community is, it's easy making money in bull markets and it's easy running these kind of websites, right? And you saw, we had one lady who came on the site, I guess it was almost 2 years, a year and a half ago. And she was like, oh, this is easy, right? Easy peasy through all this. And she went and started up her own. How do I invest in crypto? And, here's buy my course on how to buy crypto assets. How do you think she's feeling right now? The irony of it all is that, no, I'm not going to touch that word, Albert. That word's out of my dictionary. I do not, and if I was ever going to use the word bimbo, it's direct reference to men, not women. Yeah, hey Sheila, nice to see you, Sheila. Daily briefs help keep a level head. Good, excellent, good. So, that's my Bitcoin rant. Now, some sort of short-term price action. I actually drew up, I thought this was really cool. I drew up a 4-hour chart about 3 or 4 days ago when we lost that last consolidation level. And we were talking about potential breakouts and stuff. And then the market ran up and then just puked its lunch. Hats off again to Thomas. Maybe he traded this fractal. It's a nice little tweezers on the 4 hours there. Get short. Me, I didn't really have any really good setups here to get short, which sucks. I mean, it's the way the market goes. If I'm trading trend continuation, I like to follow these bot levels, and I just didn't get anything to work with here. Market dumped hard, no doubt about it. And then we've gone into this consolidation phase. And you can see how we have a mini, distribution in the profile and also one up here based off of that last range. And it's left a very wide, hole in the profile. And if we do fibs going from lows back up to highs, you can see reload zones. Interestingly enough, correspond with the previous market structure fail levels and that original bot short entry level. So, I had made the argument that if we got some sort of bullish resolution through here, we're probably going to run up into this sort of this low 5,000 areas. Somebody had asked the other day, what does BFRN stand for? BFRN stands for big fat round number. And I think there's a pretty high probability that we got to go back and trade back to 5,000. It's such a huge psychological level, but I don't know whether it's off of this bottom or the next bottom off of 2,500. I have no idea. And I think anybody who actually tells you that they know what the exact bottom or top of Bitcoin is, I used to tell, when we were going through the bull run, I used to always tell people, don't call tops, because you remember that Bitfinex guy, right? He called a top at $2,000 on Bitcoin and he got left behind on this huge run up. So same sort of thing. I don't think it's in our best interest to say this is the bottom, or the bottom will be at exactly $2,116. I don't think that's a good idea at all. And I see lots and lots of people get themselves into trouble calling bottoms and calling tops. Let the top come in, and hindsight being 2020, this was one big ass fucking ugly one. What do you think, guys? Now going forward, can everybody see how the market was smiling at us? What do you think? Did it screw us? I think so. Can you see the smile? It's the way it goes, right? But, that's unfortunately the way that we know that this bull is done, is when you start seeing the market smiling at you. And this guy has smiled repeatedly, right? There's a smile. Then there's another smile. I mean, this is a guy with orange hair. Mind you, it's not even his real hair. You could argue that there's another big ass smile. And then another smile. So until this thing stops smiling at us, I think you just gotta temper your enthusiasms. Just play it cool. Hopefully you generated a bunch of cash. I think I told you guys, I raised like 140,000 US dollars through this, all from my $500 that I started with back over here. So yeah, I could have taken a lot more capital out, but my goal was to make 100 G's and to be able to just, be able to say I took $500 and turned it into 100,000. So at this point, I tried to sort of disconnect, and everything that we have on the books is just basically what we call that free, sell half on a double stuff. So yeah, the long equity position. The good part about that, of course, is I don't have to pay taxes on any of that because I didn't sell any of it. And I fully expect, hopefully everybody can see the crazy ass cyclical nature of this. But I fully expect that we'll go through this insanity again. There's really nothing new here. And the great part about Bitcoin, this is the one thing I absolutely love about Bitcoin, is the Bitcoin itself, it doesn't have any choice, because the mining, the payout depreciates over time. So as a result, this thing has to start moving back up at some point. It's got that built-in deflation that the kids all love. And here's a kick in the pants, guys. I know a lot of you are really young, so you don't really see this, but I remember back in the 90s, we'll just take a step back and talk about gold again here for a minute. I remember back in the 90s, and this is kind of a funny story. I used to, work for brokerage houses, just shilling their products, blah, blah, blah. And I used to call a guy on through the 90s. And he literally told me, it was so funny. I remember his name was Wilkinson or something like that. And he used to tell me all the time, Brian, I bought my gold at $800 an ounce back here. And he was an older guy, right? So he was and that's the weird thing you're going to find in life, is that as you age and you get older, time seems to almost move faster. So it's weird. I used to call him and I was prospecting him here. And he would say, well, Brian, I bought my gold at, and he used to say $700-800 an ounce, something like that. So I think it was 700 and change. And he used to say, I have no interest whatsoever in selling my gold until it gets back to $700-800. So in a weird sort of way, even Mr. Wilkinson did all right over time. And the irony of it all is that we're probably going to see that same sort of scenario here with Bitcoin. Ebb and flow, back and forth. But the difference between Bitcoin and gold is that Bitcoin has that built-in inflation. So as a result, every time we go up through these crazy halvening events, there's always a bid coming back into the market. Take it easy, Christian. Hope you enjoyed this conversation. And actually, I'm really pleased at hearing that you and Axel are talking on a regular basis. I hope that German group stayed relatively solidified. Have you been talking to the Burgermeister lately? I sure hope he's doing okay. And Frank, of course, is working away on his PMA course. So yeah, maybe well, he's in China right now, and he's all rah on building out his self-help course that I'm working with him on, and we really wanted to offer that on the site in January. So and the irony of it all, guys, is that when I was when I went to Europe, did I tell any of you guys when I was in Europe, did I tell any of you to expect a big bull run here? Any of you guys? Was I kind of like, well, Jesus, Yeah, and lucky for you, Chris, right? You're kicking ass. Alex. I'm not going to say that on there. So the irony of it all is that Frank actually listened to me and he said, well, if there's no hurry in crypto, I'm going to go do other stuff. And so as a result, ironically enough, he's been well served, not watching the screen 24/7. Okay, let's finish off our thought here. Sorry, guys. Are you guys enjoying this conversation today? Is anybody getting any value out of this? What do you think, Albert? Is this the kind of stuff people would actually pay a monthly subscription for to get this kind of information? I hope so. I would and do. All right, awesome, Axel. All right. No, Albert. Well, we won't talk about that. But Alex took me. I think it was the first night I was in Vienna. He took me to a very classic sort of Viennese restaurant, and I just asked for, I'd like to. Dan and Alex and I, and Dan's such a cutie. I sure hope Dan, hang in there, buddy. And I had like a classic Viennese meal, right? Because I wanted to sort of eat the way the locals would. And there were a couple sausages on the, and the craziest kind of. So that's what that reference to is. Sausages, quote unquote. Yeah. Okay, back to our story. So in the short term, I've been painting these bull-bear battle lines. We had a really interesting one develop here off of, say, 45, 4,600. And I suggested the other day that if we could accept back above there, except above this POC, then probably odds are we're going to go zipping up top here. You can see how the market came up into this big wick and just basically said, no, not interested. We then dumped, and I had these cute little bull bear zones here. So keep in mind, this is a 4-hour candle, but we dumped and fractaled there. So you should have been thinking at this point, oh, crap, we're heading down. We've successively just made lower closing prints and lower intraday, tail prints here on this 4-hour chart. We came down against these lows. You can see how they tried to hold this trend line, and they lost that last night. And actually, I came back from Liam. Liam and I had a really nice afternoon yesterday. I came back from Liam to this, and I was like, oh, crap. And actually, this is really cool because you can see how they closed it below this little mini potential trend line. And you can see how they opened her up, and they tried desperately to get back above that trend line. Ran into the 13 EMA, and the market just said, nope, get your ass out of there, and down we go. We dumped right into good old reload zones. And interesting, the price action last night. I had even posted that at this point, we actually had and something jumped out at me when I was sort of, just going through the charts last night. And that was this event. So do you guys remember about 3 or 4 days ago? And I know Thomas loves for me to show you this chart. Remember we talked about all these AB equals CDs that had to play out? And this little one, boom, 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 hit. Lots of gyration around it. Then dump. Then this one, boom, 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 hit. And now we've got this bigger one. Now, OKCoin doesn't look like it's done it, but boom, 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 boom. You can see how close it is on OKCoin. So maybe OK has to go a little bit further. But I was really impressed at the fact that Phoenix actually hit that. Can you guys see that? Boom, 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 and doink. Look at that beautiful little doji right on that event. And then also, too, which was really interesting, was, Phoenix, and the fucking Twitter idiots are giving me fucking shit over this. Oh, fuck these idiots. The point of the matter is that there was a price gap here. There was area that was unexplored. And I find it fascinating how basically the market came right down into that level, just like we saw in crude oil, filled that. And remember the other day we even said that this gap fill, if the candle finishes like this, then technically that means that the gap's not filled in yet. And we jumped away from there and we were like, well, maybe this is an inside bar. I don't know. Interesting. Like, does it make sense, everybody? Boom. That gap has now been officially filled. So I actually went out on Twitter yesterday and I was kind of like, I got a gap fill. Julian over the past few days has been like, Brian, I totally think there's some sort of bottom here. So that must mean that our momentum indicators are starting to give us, at least signs of some sort of bottom. We got Willie stupid here, so that's encouraging, but you can see Willie was stupid here, and that only translated into that move. I got a potential divergence here in MACD, but nothing confirmed. So we're still not at the point of actually having indicator confirmation. Remember, we always say Willie stupid is, it's way too late to be a seller, but it's just not enough of a justification to be an outright buyer. But what I sort of postulated yesterday, which would be really cool, is does it make sense? You see this big honking down candle. And then if we do doji today, and of course this is predicated on us holding these lows. I honestly don't know if we are going to hold these lows or not. Where's that OKCoin chart? Right, this 4-hour chart. Can you sort of see the ultimate cool dude trade setup seems to be coming in here? That if we can come down into this reload zone, and then we could actually, pretty pleased with sugar on it, actually confirm this W here. Candle body lows as trade location. You can even see they just did that. Wouldn't that be awesome if they actually printed a nice W here and this thing held? And then I sort of said, okay, well, if that's the case, damn it. I hate when I look. I was right in mid-sentence. Okay, so we had that one, I guess. Wasn't it the Phoenix one that I had on there a second ago? Yeah, here. If we actually hold these lows and it can actually turn up and we could actually print a nice big green candle here, that would launch these momentum indicators higher, might even, this is a red candle right now. If that could print green, then maybe our OBV actually W's. You can see the potential W trying to come in on Willie. Maybe we get a nice little Davo momentum signal here. But sort of I'm holding out hope. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to come in, and it's way too early for us to declare a bottom. But if we can get this bottom to come in here, and that launches the sort of inverted empire thesis, then we might actually be getting a trade set up here. And I'm kind of thinking, if we just go off of this range, 50% rules, that'd take us back to that 5,400. We might even work our way up and eat some of this tail. Notice 38.2, or wick, beg your pardon. Notice 38.2 of this entire range, which is what the harmonics guys hunt for. Does it make sense? Let's see, level 3ers. Do we have any level 3ers in here right now? They just learned this. This is, in essence, a trade location, PRZ, potential reversal zone. We also have a gap fill. If we could get that empire to come in here, I think that actually paints for a nice little counter trend rally up into sort of that, let's call it the high 5,000s area. It's a bit of a pipe dream right now. There is nothing here to suggest that that's going to happen. We do have location. Now I'm waiting for indicator confirmation, and then finally some structure, and then away we go. But, hope springs eternal. That's sort of what I'm thinking right now in the market. The day traders, I really don't have a problem. Day traders hunting longs here and risking to new lows. You don't know whether the trade's going to work. If the trade does work and you're basically taking this kind of risk, does it make sense that, and that's a bit high. Thomas, he loves his candle body levels for trade. But if you just risk to new lows, what would it take to justify taking this trade? 2-to-1 risk reward. So in essence, you'd just be looking for a nice little counter trend rally back up into here, right into that MUOC. Sell half, move stop to scratch on the remaining, and, see where the wind blows you. So I definitely think, like the day traders, in fact, day traders would probably, real slicksters. Notice reload zone within reload zone. I mean, if you had the balls to take it, candle body lows. Now we're starting to get into some sick-ass trading. 2-to-1, just to justify the trade, is really just to move back to test these highs here, right? This original bull-bear battle line. And if that comes in, then you are so fucking golden, right? Sell half of the position, move stop to scratch on remaining, and just see where the hell this thing takes us. So, that's sort of what I'm seeing right now. The aggressive guys, yeah. Keep in mind, Alex, that this AB equals CD, it didn't set up at all for me to take the trade, but nonetheless, its target is still down here at 3,800. There might be one more flush down here, but I can definitely understand the traders who are like, here, Brian, I'm here to trade, right? Give me levels. I'll risk to new lows, and if I'm right, I'm going to get paid nicely on the trade. And, you got to understand, does anybody remember? Actually, this would be a good trivia question. Who can tell me what the typical CME pit traders expected accuracy of that? No, it's a little higher than that, Brian. Thank you, Axel. Like, they're only looking to be right 55% of the time. That means that they're going to be wrong 45% of the time. Does it make sense, Mr. Pit Trader? He's going to go in here and just buy this level and say, look, I'll risk to new lows. I don't care. If I'm right that, 55% of the time, I'm going to be looking to take profits up here. Right? Does that make sense? And get paid. But pretty good odds that I'm going to get stopped out. So, if you're an aggressive trader, it wouldn't surprise me if we talk to Thomas the next time he's on. He's hunting long setups down in here. And if something juicy comes in, he's pulling the trigger. If you're a little bit more conservative, I don't mind actually if this W came in here buying that level, this cute little W in here. And then, of course, these are trades, right? Traders got to trade. For our investors, you're just cooling your jets. And you just got to let this thing develop and actually start showing W's off of the higher time frames. Okay, guys, what do you think? Did I do a half decent job summarizing what I see out of Bitcoin right now? I hope so. We got a little doji just rocking and rolling. 55 sats. We're up now at about 7-8% on the trade. I mean, nothing really to do there right now. There's lots of these little names coming in here. And what's really cool is that Sjord's screener is now starting to spit up ideas in the crypto space. The market was closed yesterday, so I think that's why there was nothing on here today. But yesterday we had a list of about 4 or 5 alts that were spitting out 13 EMA bullish crosses. So, darn, I thought I had that. Let's see maybe if I have it on another screen. Yeah, here we are. So this, no, fudge, that's not it. Darn. I think, well, that's definitely not right. When I loaded this morning, the results from yesterday were still there, but they're gone now. Boo, hiss, boo. And if anything, I wouldn't mind, Sjord, if you're watching this later on, do you think there's a way that we could take this screener results from the day and dump them into a table, and then that way people could go back and just look at the screen signals from previous days and just a nice little table grid? I think that would be really cool, Sjord, if you're watching this later on. But Sjord's got so much on his plate right now, so I really don't want to stress him out with more work. But anyway, the point that I'm trying to make here is there are names. I mean, I don't know. What do you think, guys? Can you see how there's money to be made here? I don't like to put the market on a stopwatch. I don't like to say that this will happen by exactly this point. When does the next course start for the level 1? Next year or... Albert, when's the next level 1 starting? I think it starts in January because they're about 3/4 of the way through their current term right now. Axel, what's this? Axel's got porn for us to look at. That's weird. I thought I opened that up. Let's try that again. Open link in new window. Boom. There it is. You need permission. All right. I will ask for permission. Is this a new one? Open in new window. You still need permission. All right. Well, anyway. Oh, cool. Excellent. Okay. So Axel's doing you a favor there. CRD's taking screenshots. So. But let's finish off the conversation with today. I've been talking for about an hour and a half here. What do you think, guys? I think I asked you a few minutes ago, but are you getting any value out of today's convo? I hope so. Can you see how tomorrow's bull market, the seeds for it are being planted today? You never know how the hell these damn things are going to play out. You never know when they're going to play out. I would just simply argue, try and force yourself to buy against lows, especially when it comes to this venture capital stuff. Just buy against lows and just be patient. That's that whole sort of nanny nibbles kind of strategy. What's fascinating about this, I see this over and over and over again. Do you guys see how money is basically flowing into this thing? Even though price is really not done much, money just keeps flowing into this thing. At some point, this son of a bitch is going to pop. So the question just ultimately is, can you put yourself into a position to take advantage of that? Oh, you actually have those? Actually, that's kind of cool. Let's see what you got here. So, yeah. So I just wanted to pull up a nice little sheet. Let's see if we can just do this really quickly. Because I didn't do this earlier and it kind of bummed me out. So let's see if I can just do this again. Go new. We'll do like a 4 screen because I think there were 4 names, right? 4. Where's Axel's picture? So we had Lisk, Dope, Burst, and Start.
Start isn't available anymore, I guess.
Okay. So Lisk. Where's that? That's on Binance. On Binance. All right. So I got that. Oh, did I already do that? All right. Anyway. Dope. So dope, man. So dope. Assuming that's on Trex. Yeah, nothing really to get excited about here. Oh, and Cryptopia. Cryptopia. Oh, and these guys don't follow Cryptopia. Yeah, jerks. If anything, what this means, Stuart, is we got to get our charts rocking and rolling here on this burst. Let's see if we got anything on that burst. So burst. Did it say where that was? Burst Polo. Guess that's that one. Oh, but that's in US dollars, isn't it? This is in BTC. Polo? I guess that must be it. Oh, that's cute. And he said start as toast.
Yep.
Oh, nothing there at all. So it'd be interesting why the system saw that. And then Sys. And I always like these guys. For whatever it's worth, these guys, the dev team, always like these guys. They're quality guys. That's on Polo. Okay, so looking at this, nothing. An inside bar that fires. That makes sense why 13 EMA. Nothing really solid there yet. Fractal. I can see why the system would spit that up. And this guy here didn't quite fractal. So, nothing really to get too excited about those screener results. Okay. Thank you, Axel. I appreciate that. Keep an eye on these. I think looks to me like we're still building up this. But, this SPH, what a good looking little coin, eh? We zoomed out and we saw that money is still flowing into this. Do you see any letters of the alphabet? Does anybody see a letter of the alphabet here? What's so cool is this thing goes down, then it goes up, then it goes down, and then it breaks out. And if we change this to a line chart, you'll really see this, right? Hello, W. And this is where I really like, that reload zone concept. Maybe you're like, God damn it, Brian, this thing keeps just running away. But do you see how, this original bottom, right? There's the clothesline. There's the intraday, right? Wicks and tails. There's the clothesline. And notice the proximity all around the line in the sand. And hello, look at what we have that just came in here. We change this to a line chart. Look at that W, you son of a motherfucker. So, do you guys see how this is actually pretty cliche? Sheila, what do you think? You think you could start looking for this kind of stuff in the market? Jonas, really good example. All right, what do you think, Jonas? You think you can see this? So, get out there and get hunting. Get hunting with a bowl and spoon. I think we even see a nice little bullish divergence that's confirmed here. Accumulate. I really think this is the accumulation zone. ZCL, they're so funny, eh? Rage quit. This has got to be the rage quit coin. Looks a bit early, Alex. Like, if anything, what I really wanted to show in that last one was let the W, like the higher time frame W, come in. Don't chase. Throw on your reload zones and work your bids off of the original W in the reload zones. That's kind of what I wanted to impart here. And I think there are ideas that are doing that. That guy isn't. Jesus, this Siberian shiver nuts. Look at that son of a bitch go. Yobit must be doing some sort of promotion on these guys. Remember Yobit about a month or two ago was doing the pumps? What happened to that, eh? That just died a horrible death. Good old, Feather Coin's coming back. I remember. This is interesting. Feather was one of the original altcoins. Like, I actually remember watching Feather Coin back in 2013. So that's how long Feather's been around. Isn't that interesting, eh? All right. I think I'm talked out. I hope you guys enjoyed the offering here today. Tried to give you guys lots of value. Remember Albert's, and really, I is the Refer a Friend program still going, Albert? I know you had that up on the site there, and I think that's a great idea for you guys to take advantage of that and get paid for those referrals. But take advantage of this if you can. Save a couple bucks. And by all means, me personally, I am absolutely the biggest fan of, if you like what we see here at what we do at TRI, the absolute best thing you can possibly do for us is just to simply tell a friend. And now that we have sort of the marketing arm up and running, and these guys are running this professionally, if you do a referral, we'll make it worth your while as well. So, okay, I think we'll leave it at that for today. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast. I hope you got some value out of this every single day. That's my number one goal. We, of course, will be doing level 2 class tomorrow, which we're going to be attacking WD GAN. Oh boy, lots of fun. And we'll be doing, I guess, a broiler chicken show on Sunday. And if anything, Albert, we should maybe have a quick tete-a-tete, maybe tomorrow or something, I don't know, to effectively use that time on the broiler chicken show with the public. So. Okay, guys, have yourselves a great day. Thanks so much for listening. Hope you got some good value out of this. All the best. And the only thing left to say is a big bye for now.